Type Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Question says, how do you define extremism? And could you shed some light or give an explanation of the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ forbids extremism? To keep things brief, and inshallah we're going to try to keep the answers as brief as we possibly can. Extremism, inshallah, is going to have one or two meanings, or one or two dimensions. Number one is to take something which is not legislated, is not in the Quran and in the Sunnah, and to take it as religious devotion and religious practice. An act that is not in the Quran and the Sunnah, and use it to try to get closer to Allah faster. Like steroids. Extremism is like a steroid. It will allow me to get muscles to be stronger, quicker, and faster. It's a shortcut. But obviously it's unnatural. It isn't natural. It's not the natural way. So Allah and His Messenger or His Messenger did not legislate this act. But I'm going to do it anyway. And the reason why I'm doing this act is for me to get closer to Allah faster. Everyone listen carefully. It's a very important understanding of extremism. Something that is not legislated that I take as a means of getting to Allah. And you have to understand the psychology behind extremism. The psychology and the psyche of an extremist, of a zealot. When we talk about Muslims, they only make extremism or bid'ah and they're connected, of course, because they want to get to Allah. And they want to get to Allah faster. They have good intentions. Don't think that everyone who makes innovation or extremism, they're just evil people and nasty people. No. They want good, but they don't do it in the proper way. Number two is to take something which is legislated, something that is from the deen, but push it too hard and stretch it out too much and inflate it and amplify it too high, in which the Prophet said make 4, but I'm going to make 400. The Prophet said Monday and Thursday, 3 days, and I'm going to fast every single day out of my entire life. I would understand this? To take something which is legislated and do what? Stretch it out too much. And to be fanatical and to push it too hard and too fast. So these are the two definitions or dimensions of extremism. From this answer, inshallah ta'ala, which is brief, you can see the ignorance of people who say that it's extreme to do things that are mentioned explicitly in Quran and Sunnah with a balance. How is it extreme for me to pray? I don't know if you're aware of the fact that a few years back there was an attack, a terrorist attack, whatever you wish to call it, in which there was some explosives involved. And many people lost their lives. And many people, they were injured. And this was in Boston, if I'm not mistaken, Boston, Massachusetts. So obviously the police and the investigators and Homeland Security, etc., they investigated the situation. And they had certain suspects and people that they put on trial. So obviously they were said to be Muslims. They were said to be Muslims. And if my bad memory serves me correctly, I believe that they were supposedly said to be from Bosnia, if I'm not mistaken. Or at least one of the suspects was supposed to be a Bosnian immigrant. So they interviewed his mother. And they said, how did your son get involved with blowing things up? And how did your son become radicalized? And how to become a terrorist and an Islamic fundamentalist, a Wahhabi, etc.? What happened to your son? So the mother, she said, I'm not sure, I don't know, he was a good kid, he played basketball, blah, 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 blah. And they asked her, well, when did you notice that your son was becoming a radical fanatic and he wanted to blow things up and kill infidels? Do you know what his mother said? His mother said that I knew my son was off the right path and he was an extremist when he started praying 5 times a day. He started making 5 prayers a day. I knew he was becoming radical and he was becoming extreme. How can a Muslim say something like this? To pray 5 times a day is extreme? And you're a terrorist if you pray 5 times a day? You submit to God and you bow your head down at least 5 times. How is that extreme? And there are many people who have this same filthy, twisted understanding of extremism. They say if you grow a beard, you're an extremist. If you wear a full hijab, you're an extremist. If you say that these people will go to paradise and they will go to the hellfire, you're an extremist. What is my sin? All I did was follow what Allah clearly says, Surah 7, verse 13. What other interpretation is it of this ayah? In which Allah says, Inna alladhina, those who believe and do righteous deeds. Inna alladhina kafaru, those who don't. What interpretation of this ayah is there? The Prophet ﷺ says, let the beard grow, trim the mustache. The Prophet ﷺ says, Man lam ya'khudh min sharibihi falaysa minna. He who doesn't trim his mustache isn't from us. He who doesn't trim his mustache is not from us. By Allah, I ask you, Ahmed, what is the interpretation of that hadith? Except for to do what? Trim the mustache and let the beard grow. And the Muslims, for 1,000 years, for 1,400 years, all of them understood it to be literal and not figurative, to trim the mustache and grow the beard. And a doctor in Malaysia comes in 2019 and says, that's not what's meant by that hadith, brother. The hijab is the hijab of the heart. Good character is what's meant by hijab. Okay, maybe it does. But why didn't a scholar say it for 1,400 years? And you, mashallah, stumbled upon it. Are we understanding what I'm trying to get to? So extremism is not implementing the Quran and the Sunnah. Extremism is not following the words of God Almighty. And we are not like other faiths and other religions in which their rabbis and their monks and their priests determine what is and what isn't a rule and give a new interpretation and a new breakdown of the scriptures. That is not our way. So extremism is not following the teachings of Islam. Extremism is following other than the teachings of Islam or taking the teachings of Islam too far. And how is it taking it too far? By doing what Allah and His Messenger tell us to do. And Allah knows best.
Where do I draw the line between modesty and looking good? Does Islam allow one to look dapper?
Try it. Abu Saeed, he can come up to the stage. Dapper Dan. As a PA announcement for Abu Saeed. Please come to the stage, Akhi. I think you can answer this question. We'll put you on Mufti Q&A right now. Yalla, Akhi. Is it okay to look dapper, to be coordinated? Color. I've never been with a brother, mashallah, who was more coordinated than Abu Saeed. Allahumma barak alayhi. I've never traveled with a brother who was sharper and coordinated than this guy. In a yellow hoodie, right over there, guys. Put the camera on him, Nafis. Fadda. You want to mess with me, Abdul Qayyam? Tayyib. With that being said, there's no contradiction between the two, brothers and sisters. There's no contradiction. There's no clash. You can be modest and you can look nice and handsome or beautiful or dapper or fly. There's no contradiction between the two. Everybody understand this? Rather, I would say this. Let's talk about jewelry, right? Jewelry, right? Expensive jewelry, fine jewelry. Let's talk about watches, right? There are certain watches which are more expensive than others, right? The more expensive the watch and the more quality the watch is, the more what the watch is. Nah, it's what? What's a distinguishing feature about a very expensive timepiece is what? Is that it's what? Craftsmanship. There's no doubt about that, but it's something else. That is what? It's simple. It's simple. It's beautiful. It's elegant. Luxurious, but at the same time it's what? It's simple. The most luxurious things are oftentimes the what? The simplest things. And the replica, the fake Rolex or Rollie, is oftentimes what? Too loud, too tacky, and it's not simple and smooth. Agreed or not? Your husband buys you some jewelry, some earrings, and has 50 different colors on the bracelet, and 50 different designs, and this and that. You're going to say, what's this? But the good ring, or the necklace or the earring, is beautiful. It has its features, but at the same time, it's what? It's never too much to look at. So there's no contradiction between being modest and looking nice. Allah Azza wa Jalla is beautiful and He loves beauty. The Prophet tells us, إِنَّ اللَّهَ إِذَا أَنْعَمَ عَلَىٰ when Allah blesses a slave, أَحَبَّ أَنْ يُرَى أَثْرُ نِعْمَتِهِ عَلَيْهِ. Allah loves for that to be shown and manifested, that Allah has blessed you. and Allah has blessed me, so I wear nice clothes, it doesn't mean that I have to be extravagant. It doesn't mean I have to push it too much and go too far. And it doesn't necessitate that I don't dress modestly. You can dress modestly and still look handsome and still look beautiful. However, the purpose of the hijab is what? The purpose of the clothing of the man is what? To show people what you look like? To draw attention to yourself? Or to look nice and to take the permissible blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So there's a difference that we have to understand. And of course, there are inconsistencies between men and women, as we said. And everything with your hijab is not about style and fashion. Rather, when you're inside or with other sisters or in front of your husband, you can look as nice as you want to look and beautiful as you wish to look and nice and pretty as you want to, but not outside of the home. And the same applies to brothers. You don't want to draw attention to yourself from every single walking creature. Modesty, simplicity does not clash with being nice and being dapper. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blesses the slave and He loves for those blessings to be shown and to be manifested. That's in brief. Wallahu alam.
So, sisters, any question?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So, Jazakallah khair for the talk. So,
the insightful talk, right? So she said 2 nights in a row. Tayyib.
Jazakallah khair for the insightful talk. So, it's true that, like you mentioned, Islam came to raise the status of women, and it claimed the rights for women in education, inheritance, and made women truly independent. But let's look at the reality for a second, right? So if we look at the status of the Muslim world today, and we look at the statistics, we see that rates of illiteracy, rates of forced marriage and gender-based violence is highest mostly in Muslim majority countries. And it's usually the case, the more Islamic a country is, at least I'll speak about where I'm from, in Afghanistan, the more Islamic Afghanistan became, the more female rights just went down the drain. So my question is, why is there such a great polarity between what Islam says and the way it's being practiced? And how do we tackle that?
Tayyib. Jazakallah khairan for the insightful question. With that being said, brothers and sisters, the question in a nutshell is, why we know the theory. Islam does this for women, Islam does that for women, so on and so forth. However, the Muslims, and whenever they're more religious and more Islamic, the worse it is for women. Women are abused, they're beaten, they're illiterate, they can't read, they can't write, etc., etc., etc. Where I come from, Afghanistan, the more Islamic Afghanistan became, the worse things became for women. How do we understand the polarity, the balance between this? Something is wrong. Tight. My first piece of advice to you, sister, may Allah bless you and increase you in beneficial knowledge and righteous action, is to be mindful of statistics and beware of statistics. And oftentimes, statistics are extremely misleading. And oftentimes, statistics are wrong and inaccurate. And they can give you a vague, if not totally inaccurate picture of a thing. Be mindful of statistics. And with this being said, bihadhihi I would like to give some advice to other brothers who are speakers, even though I need the advice more. And that is, I don't think that your dawah or your argument about Islam or Quran or terrorism or this and that should be 101% based off of statistics. And many brothers, they do this. In 1969 this, people say that, people say this, so on and so on and so on and so forth. Statistics are used as a supplement. Statistics are used on the side, supporting proofs and evidences. I do not think that statistics should be your main argument and your main proof and evidence. And that's because, as I said, oftentimes statistics are lies. Oftentimes statistics are exaggerated and inflated. They're inaccurate. And if they are accurate, oftentimes they are misleading. And being on the ground, living in a place, living in a city, living in a country is like night and day. Allah knows best. If I read statistics about Malaysia with regards to violence or prostitution or pedophilia or this or that or car accidents, etc., I don't think I will probably come to Malaysia. It's a dangerous place. It's a reckless place. It's this and it's that. If I read certain statistics on Google or Wikipedia about Malaysia, about Kuala Lumpur, you think this is right or wrong? But I've been here for how many days now, Ashik? What has happened to me? Did anyone murder me or rape me or run me over? Did we get into a car accident yet? Nafis is driving. I will let foot. Everyone understand this? So the point I'm trying to make is this is a serious issue. Is that if you just base everything off of statistics, it is extremely misleading. And I'm sure that you know many things, or we can Google it right now. If you make a challenge, just make a challenge right now, I'm sure we can find all types of horrible statistics about Malaysia. What do you guys think? You want to do it or not? If we Google certain things, crime in Malaysia, prostitution in Malaysia, such and such, murder in Malaysia, robbery in Malaysia. But that doesn't mean that that's the day-to-day life in what? In Malaysia. Things happen. People have issues and problems, but it doesn't mean that that's everywhere. You guys agree? We can agree on this or not? You agree with that, sister, or not? Make sense? So that's the first piece of advice, is to be careful of statistics. Number two is, I don't differ with you. I agree with you oftentimes. Is that in the Middle East, or in the Far East, or North Africa, or any other place, West Africa, in which there are large numbers of Muslims, there are all types of crimes and atrocities committed to women or other than women. And oftentimes in the name of Islam. In the name of Islam. However, we have a big, huge problem. And that is that who said that Afghanistan or other countries actually became Islamic accurately? Islam. They became more religious. And the religion and their understanding, I'm not saying nothing about Afghanistan, that's just an example, and you mentioned that. I'm not saying this about Afghanistan, I'm making a point. In which Islam is no longer understood and practiced in its entirety as a pure concept. But it is tainted and mixed with culture, which oftentimes is bad and haram. I've never been to Afghanistan, but I have many friends who are from Afghanistan, many friends. And from time to time I read a couple of books and I may watch some documentaries. And I know many things about certain cultural practices in Afghanistan that I don't think you would want me to mention right now, right here in public. And those things of the wolf and the blood of Yusuf didn't ever mix. There was no wolf that attacked Yusuf. It was a lie. Bidamin kadhib. It has nothing to do with each other. And people in Afghanistan or Malaysia or Nigeria or this country and that country, it is a staple part of their practice of Islam. And there's no hadith to support it. There's no verse in the Quran to support it. Rather, the Quran and the Sunnah say do the exact opposite. So if Afghanistan or any other country was practicing the pure understanding and practice of Islam, then we would have a clear problem. Why is there so much rape in this country in which they implement the Sharia? Why is there so much abuse to women in this country in which they implement the correct Sharia? Something's wrong. I agree. But in a country, whether it's Afghanistan or any other country, in which there is 40% Sharia and 60% culture, 70% da'if hadiths, fabricated narrations, 30% authentic hadiths, 80% madhab of this and of that, 20% Bukhari and Muslim. I can't agree with those statistics. And I can't say that there's polarity between the two. The reason why women are getting raped and oppressed and there's female genital mutilation and this and that and all of those problems is because these people are not implementing Islam. They may be Muslims, they may claim Islam, but they themselves don't understand the proper and true Islam. Everyone understand this? Whether it be Afghanistan or any other place. Everyone understand this or not? My last piece of advice to you, or my last point of my answer is, who said that a woman has to read and write? What's wrong with the literacy? What's the harm in it? The Prophet couldn't read or write. He was the best of mankind. How many years have people been living and dying and surviving and they don't know how to what? Read or write. Is reading a good thing? Do I want my daughters to read and write? Of course I do. They go to school and I teach them, of course. But is reading and writing a necessity of life in which we challenge and attack or question certain things in Islam just because a woman can't read or write? And who said a woman has to read or write? Who says a man has to read or write? What's the problem? What's the issue? Does every woman have to read and write? Does every man need to read and write? No. Some women need to read and write, no question. We need teachers. We need educators. We need women who have knowledge, of course. But what is the proof that every single man or woman has to be literate? What's the dalil for that? And I'm not talking about Islamic dalil. I'm talking about intellectually. What's the proof? What's the issue with that, Abu Saeed? Is that a must? How many people you know that can't read or write? And they're great people. And they do great things. And they were great leaders. Western civilization, Eastern civilization, what you do, your profession, your speciality, that's a different story. Me personally, I totally am against people being illiterate. And I think that there should be a war waged on illiteracy. I agree with you on that. And we should teach our people how to read and how to write. And the mother of your children, the woman that you lay with and sleep with, who knows your secrets, who protects you and your wealth and your honor, and she's ignorant, I don't agree with that. And I don't think that's right. And that's definitely not Islamic. The wives of the Prophet, they had knowledge, they had fiqh. Aisha was a great erudite scholar of Islam. That's not an issue in which we're differing over. But your argument and your basis, if we were having a debate, that would be shredded to pieces. What's wrong with illiteracy? What's the problem? Do people have to know how to read and write? When's the last time you used the math and the science that you learned in high school in the real world? Honestly. Right or wrong? Honestly. Now, if you wish to be an engineer, if you build bridges, that's a different story. Algebra and calculus and this and that. But the average day-to-day person, what math does he need besides addition, subtraction, multiplication? What else do you need on a daily basis? Social studies and poetry. And what do you do on a daily basis in which you need these things? Understand the point I'm trying to get to? So therefore, it's unfortunate in which there are countries in which people, they claim Islam and they claim the religion and they want to be religious, but they oppress women. That's very sad. And that is, unfortunately, leaving Islam with a very, very bad image. And I understand exactly what you're saying. Many countries in which the people are more religious, they're further behind technologically. They have the worst hospitals, the worst service. They have the worst manners. One manifestation of this, me coming from the United States, one of the most basic lessons that you learn in America is to wait your turn. Wait your turn, right or wrong. Wait your turn. Never bust in front of someone in a line. And if someone busts in front of you, as we say, or the brothers in the UK say the queue, if someone steps in front of you in the line, that's a very, very disrespectful act. And the person is basically telling you that you're nothing, you're a chump, you're a coward. I can just step in front of you and you ain't going to say anything about it. This is a basic teaching of Western culture, where we come from, America, right or wrong, Nafis? Wait your turn. Raise your hand and wait your turn, right? The countries that I've been to in the Middle East, which are religious or Islamic and trying to follow, I've had the most traumatic, I've had the most upsetting experiences with people busting in front of you and cutting you off and taking your turn at the hospital, at Western Union, in the masjid, in the cafeteria, in the supermarket. That's sad. But that doesn't mean that this country in the Middle East or that country is actually practicing Islam in its pure concept. What's the proof for what you say? What's the proof? The Prophet ﷺ, he was sitting in the masjid, and the hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim. He was sitting in the masjid, right? And he was telling his companions and teaching his companions. And all of a sudden, a Bedouin man came up to him. And we know that the companions were very happy when a Bedouin would come. Do you know why they were happy when a Bedouin man would come? Who knows why they were happy? They had no filter. They were crude. They would just move someone out the way. Give me, O Messenger of Allah. Tell me, O Muhammad, such and such. They had no manners. They lived rough and tough. They were crude, quaint. Everyone understand this? So therefore, that's one reason, but there's another reason which is more important than that. How do you benefit from someone not having manners? What's that? It's something else. It's very important. They could ask questions that the companions couldn't. It was a time in which the companions were forbade. They were prohibited from asking certain questions. And there was a wisdom behind that. The Bedouin people weren't in the company of the Prophet ﷺ. They would come and they would ask a question without a filter, and it would be a benefit for Everybody. So the Bedouin man, he saw that the Prophet was speaking. Where's the Prophet? Who is he? They pointed to him, and he went to the Prophet ﷺ, and he asked him a question. In the middle of the Prophet talking and speaking. And he says, when will the last day be? When is the day of judgment? When is the hour? The Prophet ﷺ did not answer the man. He finished his speech. He continued talking to the individual. When he was done, he says, Aina urahu, or Aina sa'il an sa'a. Where is the one who asked the question about the day of judgment? Where is he at? He was pointed to him, and he said, when will the hour be? He asked him, and he gave him the answer. He says, إِذَا ضُيَّتِ الْأَمَانَةِ. He says, when the trust is wasted, when there's no amana, there's nothing but treachery. فَانْتَظِرِ السَّاعَةِ. He says, then wait for the hour. Meaning the hour is close by when there's no integrity among people. And he asked, كَيْفَ إِضَاعَتُهَا. How will the trust be wasted? How will people lose their integrity? He says, إِذَا وُسِّدَ الْأَمْرُ إِلَى غَيْرِ أَهْلِهِ. أو إذا وسدت الأمور إلى غير أهلها أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام كما جاء روايات. He says, when people who are not qualified are put into position of authority, when the affairs and the matters are given to reckless, irresponsible hands, that's when the amana will be wasted. The ulama of Islam, they say this hadith proves وَفِيهِ الْأَخْذُ بِالدَّوْرِ is everyone has to wait his or her turn. So the Prophet did not allow the Bedouin man to cut in front of someone. He made him wait his turn. In the Middle East, North Africa, this country, people that are Islamic or Muslims, majority Muslims, do they wait their turn? But it doesn't mean that you blame that on what? Understand my point? So any other thing in which the people do, which is against Islam, such as gender-based violence or illiteracy, it doesn't mean that that's what? Islam. Point proven or not? And Allah knows best.
Brothers.
Are there any other questions before we stop?
There is another question, sir.
Assalamu
Alaikum salam to Allah.
Jazakallah for the lecture, Sheikh. How would you advise Muslims to practice their religion in secular states, like states where they tend to repress Muslims in terms of practice?
إذا نهيتكم عن شيء فاجتنبوه. He says, whatever I prohibit you and forbid, just stay away from it. If I tell you that something is haram, then stay away from it. Stay away from that thing. The other half of the hadith, it says, وَإِذَا أَمَرْتُكُمْ بِأَمْرٍ فَأْتُوا مِنْهُ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. And whatever I tell you to do, I mandate for you, do it to the best of your ability. فَإِنَّمَا أَهْلَكَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ كَثْرَةُ سُؤَالِهِمْ وَاخْتِلَافِهِمْ عَلَىٰ أَنْبِيَائِهِمْ أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. He says the only reason why the previous nations were destroyed and ruined is because they asked too many questions and they did not obey and listen to their prophets. So it's that simple. Do the best you can. If you live in a secular state or a nominal place, do the best that you can. And if you can't do something, if it's too difficult, if you're going to be punished and tortured and totally abused, then you stay away from it and you ask Allah to forgive you. But the hadith clearly tells us to do, to strive. Everyone understand this? So therefore, if you live in a place in which they tell you that you can't make salah in public, then obviously you should move. Let's say you can't move. There's no way, you don't have the ability to move. And you try your best to make the salah in private. If you live in a place in which halal meat is unlawful, it's illegal, it's considered to be inhumane and barbaric, to take a sharp blade across the throat of an animal, and it has to be hit with a poleaxe or electrocuted or processed in a certain way. Try your best to make hijrah, to leave that place. And if you can't, try your best to survive off of fish and seafood. Try your best to survive off of things which don't come from animals. And if you cannot, it's too cold, or your body is sick and you have to have this type of meat, fear Allah to the best of your ability. And the same applies to Hajj and Zakah and fasting and Hijab and anything else. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah the best way you know how. But the problem is, brothers and sisters, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to fear Him. I.e., the default is to do it and to try. And it's not the default not to do it and make an excuse as the initial step and then say we live in a secular country. But you have to do what? You have to strive. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Everyone understand this? So you don't start off with an excuse. You start off with trying. When you don't have the ability to do it, hopefully there's no sin upon you. It's just that simple. But we must have the proper understanding of Islam. And that is to try first. And not to say, I'm not going to do it, then look for an excuse. Because I live in a secular country or city. Wallahu alam.
How to deal with the opposite gender in the working field, especially if someone is crossing the line? Another similar question, what are the practical tips to lower your gaze when there are too much fitna in your workplace for co-worker requests?
طيب. Question says, how to deal with the opposite gender in the workplace, especially when someone is crossing the line. Lowering the gaze, there's so much fitna, so on and so forth. I would say, if someone is crossing the line in the workplace, it's a danger to the workplace, to every single employee and employer, not just Muslims. If there's someone who's flirting and hitting on you or harassing you or grabbing or this or that, it's a danger to the workplace and it should be reported. And it should not be allowed to just be swept under the rug. Oh, it's okay. I don't want no fitna. I don't want no problems. No, 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 no. It's not all right to harass someone. It's not okay. And that's because sexual harassment and flirting and excessive mingling and all these things, they lead to lack of productivity. You can't get any work done if you're thinking about your secretary. If your secretary is thinking about you, what work are you going to get done, I would say? What paper are you going to write? You're not going to do anything because you're thinking about having an affair. So it's a problem. It's a mushkila, all right? When someone is transgressing the boundaries. But saying hello, being cordial, holding the door for someone, basic professionalism doesn't mean that that's crossing the line. And you don't have to go to the workplace with your head down. Hello, how are you? That's not professional. That's not professional. And the ulama of Islam, they spoke about this. About making eye contact and looking at someone in certain situations. And seeing the face of a woman who's covering her face in certain situations. In certain situations. So therefore, being a professional doesn't mean that you're excessive. Hello, how's it going? Good morning, all right? It's really cold outside. You saw the game last night? Yeah, I did. And you go to your cubicle. You go to your cubicle. All right, how's it going, guys? All right, yeah, I'll see you later. Right. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're staring and lusting and joking and touching and this and that. That's a problem. And that's going to lead to everyone suffering in the workplace. To everyone suffering in the workplace. Now, with this being said, I want to mention something. I don't know how it is in Malaysia, but I know in America, there's a lot of double standards, many double standards, and a lot of hypocrisy. When we talk about feminism and chauvinism, and many women, there lies no doubt that they take a lax approach when a man is being harassed, and a man is being hazed, and a woman is crossing the boundaries against a man. It's all right, it's okay. But if a man says something or whistles or does this or does that, it's the greatest crime in the book. And that's hypocrisy, that's nifaq. And that is why you can go on YouTube and you can find certain experiments that they do. One experiment, there was a guy who walked up to a girl. She was an attractive woman, dressed in an appealing fashion. And he was touching her, and he was walking up on her, and he was hitting on her, and come on, come on. And she says, no, stop. She was shy, she was scared, and she was embarrassed. And every person that walked by, they got an attitude problem. Yo, what are you doing? Back off. One person pushed him. Get away from her. Leave her alone. She doesn't want to be with you. It's wrong. It's a crime, right? And then the same crew, the same actors, they flipped the script. A woman dressed in the same fashion, she walked up to a shy, nerdy-looking type of guy. And she started hitting on him and talking to him. Hey. And she started grabbing him. He said, no, please stop. I don't want you. What's wrong with you? And she started attacking him and attacking his sexuality and his sexual orientation. Are you gay and this and that? Everybody who walked by did nothing. Some people laughed, some people smiled, and one person said, yo, dude, what's wrong with you, man? She's hot. She's hitting on you. It's okay. It's all right. For a woman to transgress the boundaries against a man, but not the opposite. Everyone understand the point I'm trying to get to? That's wrong. And many people, they do this. And the same applies to the workplace. So anyone who's transgressing the boundaries is not okay Islamically, first and foremost. First and foremost, it's not okay Islamically. And secondly, in the professional realm, it's totally not okay. But guys, oftentimes we're putting a Band-Aid on a fractured bone. And that is, what is the ruling on men and women being in one workplace? What is the ruling on this type of mixing or intermingling in the workplace? That's a long issue which we're not going to get into right now. And if I got into that, then there'll be all types of people smiling down would have a frown and will be hating me at the end of the lecture before we leave. Remember that time at the college, Nafis? Everyone was laughing and clapping and applauding, right? Remember? In Brooklyn, I was the best thing since sliced bread. And when I said something that disturbed some of those sisters and touched them the wrong way and it didn't agree with their feminist agenda, what did they do? They made a campaign against me. But before that, they were laughing and joking. MashaAllah, the sheikh's good. Look how treacherous the human being is. You understand this? So we're not going to get into the issue of being in the workplace. The bottom line is brothers are going to work with sisters. That's how it is. You go to college. It's free mixing. It's intermingling. That's how it is. So if that's the case, fear Allah the best way you know how. Speaking to someone, holding the door for someone. If someone's soda falls out of the vending machine and you pick it up for them, that's not crossing the line. Huh? But you touching and grabbing and making comments and making someone feel uncomfortable, that's crossing the line. And it's haram, it is impermissible, and it is also counterproductive. So therefore, tell that person to fear Allah. If they're not a Muslim, tell them no thank you, leave me alone, so on and so forth. The last piece of advice that I want to give with regards to this situation is that how you hold yourself and how you conduct yourself. And unfortunately, people may get upset, but I'm going to say it. How you dress is a big part of how people deal with you, whether you like it or not. You can say whatever you want to say. It's the truth. How you dress and how you conduct yourself plays a huge role in how people deal with you and look at you in gender interaction. There's no question about that. We can lie to ourselves. You can't say that just because she's dressed like that, it doesn't mean that. Just because he's dressed like this, it doesn't mean that. We can lie to ourselves as much as we want to. We can live in that fantasy world, that bubble of illusion. But the reality is your clothes mean a lot. And how you conduct yourself and carry yourself. And if you stand on values and principles, most people will respect them. Every now and then someone will try to test you out, yes, and cross the boundaries. But most people, they're going to know he's a Muslim. He's a family man. Huh? He's married. He's not a womanizer. We're not going to go and try to flirt with him and come to the club. There may be a woman who may try it. There may be someone who says, I want to break him. I want to get him. I want to ruin him. I want to ruin him from being a religious person, and I want him to fornicate with us. But most of the women, they're going to what? They're going to respect it. And they're going to know it's not going to work. He's religious. And the same applies to a religious woman. The same applies to a professional woman. Rather, she doesn't have to be religious, but she's a good, hard-working woman. They're going to know not in the office. So how you conduct yourself, how you carry yourself, and how you respect yourself plays a great, major part in how people deal with you. Last but not least, with regards to too much fitna, and you have to lower your gaze and so on and so forth, as I said, get married. Get married. Why are you delaying marriage? Until what? You want to get married when you're 30. You want to marry when I'm 35. I have to have a big house. I have to have a big car. I have to have $1 million in the bank. I have to have all of these things just to get married. That's harmful. And that is not the sunnah. That's not the sunnah. The sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is ease and simplicity. Ease and simplicity. And inshallah ta'ala, if you get married, and if you put your trust in Allah, and you take calculated risks, Allah will protect you. And Allah will bless you. And Allah will provide you through means that you could never imagine. But you have to put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Get married, brothers and sisters. And if you can't get married, then fast. Stay busy. Avoid idle time and avoid bad friends. And if you're in a location in which there's just too much fitna and too much evil and too many people that are uncovered and naked and half dressed like this, then maybe you need to leave that location. Maybe you should leave that location. If it's a job, get another job. If it's a college, get another college. Go to another place, study online. Leave that evil place. And Allah knows best. Next question.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Jazakallah khairan for that insightful talk. So this is, it's a bit more of a lighthearted question, but I have a brother here on campus, and we'd be walking down the campus, and one of the brothers would pass by and he'd say, "Oh, assalamu alaikum, Qusay, how are you, yada, 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 yada." And I'm just left to the side. So I don't understand what the proper procedure is here. Should the brother say assalamu alaikum and then, avoid his gaze, or should I just continue walking down? Or?
Clear. Jazakallah khairan for the insightful question. Tayyib, with that being said, the general rule is it isn't haram to give salams to the opposite sex. It's not haram. It's not haram. As long as it's done respectfully and honorably, assalamu alaikum. There's nothing wrong with that. If you are in a workplace or college and you say assalamu alaikum, how's everybody doing? Good. Respectfully and honorably. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean that you're flirting or crossing the boundaries. With those two conditions, as I said, respectfully and honorably. When someone is staring at you and lusting off of you and crossing the boundaries, is crystal clear. An honorable, respectful salam is different. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, everyone well? May Allah bless you. Respect and honor. So it's not haram. But if you give salams to a woman or a brother and it causes you to feel a certain way, or it leads to other speech, or causes discomfort, or you start staring and looking and thinking and lusting, then it's best to avoid without a question. It's best to avoid. But if you're walking with your brother and he gives you salams, or him salams, and not you, maybe looked at as being rude. Am I not a Muslim? Am I not a human being? I'm standing right here. And what's going to happen between us and I'm standing right here with my brother? So that's not something I would advise with. To just walk up to two people and say assalamu alaikum and just totally ignore the other person. Now, a big part of this answer in this question or question and answer is culture. Culture. There are many cultures in which it's offensive and disrespectful to give a man's wife salutations. It's disrespectful to give someone greetings, to say hi. They may take it personal. All right? Regardless of whether it is a cultural reason or insecurity or jealousy, but certain people, it's just not all right. But if you're going to college, you're with men and women, non-Muslims, how many people were on it? Haram stuff all around us in this campus. And a person is that pious and that righteous, in which he can't give salams to the sister that's standing right there, to the brother who's his friend. That's a bit backwards. Am I having That's a bit what? That's a bit backwards. So therefore, just you and him alone, that's one scenario. In front of people, another scenario. With your brother, mahram, another scenario. Assalamu alaikum, sister, such and such, may Allah bless you. With honor, with respect, inshallah khair, there's nothing wrong with that. The bottom line is, brothers and sisters, is that the bitter reality is many of us are backwards mentally. It's a reality. It's a reality. And many of us are backwards spiritually. And we think that we're practicing the deen, and oftentimes we're doing the exact opposite. And oftentimes we have a lot of fake piety. A lot of fake piety. As I was asked once in New York City, they asked the question and said, "Yeah, Sheikh, what's the ruling on a sister doing an Islamic talk in the classroom? Can a woman be the head of the MSA? Can she stand in front of the people and give a talk?" And the brother who asked me the question had a very full cup, as we say, metaphorically or figuratively. He had pre-assumptions that it was already haram, and he just wanted me to certify his answer to talk about the sister and call her this and call her that. So I said to the brother, I said, "Yahi, don't you go to college?" He said, "Yeah." So I said, "Why are we leaving the room right now? There are non-Muslims outside waiting to come into the classroom, and the professor who's wearing nothing of what? Hijab. Don't you sit in front of her? Don't you have to look at her? Doesn't she call on you? Don't you communicate with her? Is that not haram? Is she dressed better or worse than Sister Fulana that's going to give the talk to the students in the classroom?" Of course he didn't have an answer, but the point is the hypocrisy. You're sitting in front of an uncovered woman wearing tight, revealing clothes, but the sister, she can't give an announcement for the MSA in front of the brothers and the sisters. What type of backwardsness is this? If it's that haram and you're that pious, why are you in a free mixed college? Why are you in a what? A free mixed college. So oftentimes people are hypocritical, and oftentimes people are just flat out lacking of intelligence. I'll say that. All right? And Allah knows best.
Brothers?
Nafis, tafaddal.
In America, we have this thing on February 14th, St. Valentine's Day. I don't know if they have that here. Can
Cupid.
You shed light on it?
Right. Can you shed light on Valentine's Day or St. Valentine's Day? It's here? They have it here? Big time, huh? Tayyib. Can you shed light on that? ثم جعلناك على شريعة من الأمر فاتبعها ولا تتبع أهواء الذين لا يعلمون. Al-Ayat. Allah says, and then, O Muhammad, we placed you upon a sharia, a way, a broad, clear, straight path. We've placed you thereupon. فَاتَّبِعْهَا. So follow that path. Tread that path. And follow not the desires and the whims of those who lack knowledge. So this verse in the Quran al-Kareem and the following verses is totally comprehensive for Valentine's Day, Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween, whatever day or holiday or holy day that the people come up with. Is it from Muhammad's Sharia or not? Is it from Muhammad's way or not? The best way is Muhammad's way. Even if it is permissible to celebrate it and to give someone some chocolate or some hearts or some candies or some flowers, even if it is, it's definitely not the best. And that's because Muhammad didn't mention it. So what makes more sense? To take the best or to take that which is less? You have the ability to buy the superior automobile or an automobile which is clearly inferior. They say this automobile is nowhere near that one. And you have the money and the ability to pick the superior automobile. What intellectual would take the inferior car? Who in his right mind? If you didn't have enough money, you may have to. You're budgeting, but I have enough money, it doesn't hurt me at all. It's way within my budget. And the dealer says, get this model. It's 10 times better. There's no comparison between this model and that model. Who's going to buy the worst model? I would say who? In his right mind. Someone in their wrong mind? Of course they'll do that. So this is how we have to look at life. For argument's sake, it's permissible to celebrate Christmas. It's permissible to celebrate Halloween or Thanksgiving. For argument's sake. For argument's sake. But is it the best thing to do? We can agree that it isn't the best thing, and that's because Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't come with it. Everyone understand this? Everyone got this or not? So that's the general concept and that's the general rule. As far as these holidays, then alhamdulillah, we've spoken on them. You were there. Western holidays and Eastern holidays in light of the Quran and Sunnah, and the paganism and the rituals of idolatry and idol worship that are behind most, if not all, of these holidays. Where does a cupid come from? A baby with wings, with a bow and an arrow, shooting someone in his or her heart. And if someone gives you a flower or gives you a candy heart, you have to do this, and if they catch you under the mistletoe, where do these practices come from? You'll be shocked when you read about the history of Christmas and Thanksgiving and Halloween. You'll be shocked when you read how these things are connected with religion. And there's not, and all of these different things are based on, these holidays oftentimes are based off of them. Worshiping the dead, exalting the dead, extolling the dead, and things like this. So therefore, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, and all of these different things like this, Muslims should not celebrate. They're not allowed to celebrate them. St. Cupid's Day or St. Valentine's Day or Valentine's Day, a Muslim should not partake in these things. There's nothing wrong with buying your wife chocolate and buying your wife flowers. There's nothing wrong with buying your husband chocolate or flowers or candy. There's nothing wrong with that. But not on February 14th. Buy them the things all of the time. You should love your wife all of the time. You should love your husband all of the time. There should be affection all of the time. Tell your wife how you feel about her all of the time. Write her a card all of the time. Send her an e-card all of the time. Send flowers to her house all of the time. Everyone understand this? And not on their pagan mushrik day. And obviously when we talk about saints, where do saints come from? And who worships saints? And what do other Christians say about the Catholics, who have so many different saints? You'd be shocked. You read what the Protestants say and the Orthodox Christians, what they say about Catholics, and how they look at them and their veneration of what? Saints. Oftentimes they call them pagans and idol worshippers because they have so many saints whom they worship. So that's something that the Muslims should stay far away from. Wallahu a'lam.
What's the evidence that hijab is compulsory for women, given that there are some sheikhs that say it's not compulsory, and why only women get to wear hijab, not men?
Tayyip. What's the proof that hijab is compulsory for women? Because some sheikhs say that it isn't compulsory. And why do women have to wear hijab and not men? The question is plagued by the full cup syndrome. Do we know what I mean when I say a full cup? A full cup. Do we need a demonstration, Nafis, or they got the point of a full cup? La, it's not Karate Kid. No way. It's deeper than that, Khidr. Strike one. Huh? It's not that either. Do we understand the concept of having a full cup? It means coming to the table with pre-assumed information. And oftentimes with useless facts. It doesn't come from Karate Kid or this movie or that movie, The Forbidden Kingdom. La, it's far deeper than that. It's an ancient concept. I'll give you a modern day concept. We know that one of the last countries to be opened up to the Western powers and for trade and commerce to take place between them and between the Western powers wasn't necessarily the last country, but one of the last countries was Japan. For years, Japan lived in total isolation, and they were extremely xenophobic against Westerners and other cultures and religions, 100%. And they looked at China. Obviously, much of their language and religion and culture and arts come from China, much. But they looked at what happened to China and to the Chinese people and how the Chinese were dominated and influenced and violated by the French, by the British, by the Italians, by the Germans, etc. And they didn't want it to be like that. And they refused to do trade with these Western countries. They refused. They refused. However, when those Western gunships came to their ports and in front of those islands, and they said, either you open up your country or we'll bomb your country and destroy it. You make the decision. You have such and such amount of time. We'll be waiting. And if you refuse to open up your country for trade and commerce, we will use our naval strength against you. And we all know what happened, and we all know what took place. In brief, once Japan began to trade with these Western countries, and Westerners went to their countries, and they traded culture and values, and obviously the superiority or the inferiority complex took place. You're savages, you're behind, take everything from us. Our culture, our clothes, it's not about a toy train, a model. It's deeper than that. The Dutch and the Portuguese is deeper than that. You have to look like us, walk like us, talk like us. Everything is based off of our culture and our civilization. I would understand this or not. So as this took place, there were many people who rebelled, and they refused to allow their culture and their arts and their language to be dominated and stomped upon by these barbarian Europeans. That's what they called them. They refused. But the majority of the people, the government, the emperor, they said, it is what it is, and get over it. And there were different restorations which took place, and things that were abolished. I would understand this or not. So the point is that the different Europeans who went to Japan, they had different interests in Japan. Some had commercial interests, right? Some had their own personal interests, such as the concept of gunpowder and of the rifle, the musket, the gun. Do you know the first person to introduce the gun to Japan was, they say, from Portugal? And for him to give them the secrets and the models and the technology to make firearms, he told the emperor, he says, I want to marry your daughter. If you allow me to marry your daughter and take her back to Portugal, I'll give you the secrets to make firearms. And we all know what the emperor did. He said what? Take my daughter. Everyone understand this? I'm trying to make a point here. Everyone stay with me. So some people had personal interests. Some people, they were fascinated by the religion of the Japanese and their culture and their arts, martial arts, whatever the case may be, mysticism, etc. And one of the things that intrigued and interested many of these Western visitors was that which is called Zen, the concept of Zen. And obviously in movies and cartoons and video games, you'll hear the concept of Zen. And many people, they have a misunderstanding of what Zen is and what Zen isn't, and where it came from, etc. So there was one man who was a professor of theology, and he considered himself to be a mystic in his country, in Germany. So he traveled to Japan and he visited Japan. And he got with another professor who was Japanese. And this Japanese professor, he had some experience or some knowledge on what Zen was. So he invited him over his house. And he gave him food. And they sat down on the floor and they began to eat, so on and so forth. And he kept asking him questions about Zen. Tell me what Zen is. And I've heard this. And in Germany we know this, and we know that this is such and such, and it came from this Chinese person, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so forth. So the Japanese professor, he was forbearant, he was clement, he was tolerant. So he sat down and he ate and he chewed, shook and he nodded his head and said, okay, interesting. And the man kept asking and pressing. So he says, would you like some more tea? He said, yeah, sure. So he gave him the cup, and the professor began to pour his tea. So as he poured the tea, and obviously the tea was very hot, and he held the tea, the German professor said, that's enough. I get it. And he kept pouring. He said, wow, it's burning my hand. I get it. That's enough tea. All right. He says, your mind concerning Zen is like this cup. It's full of information and pre-assumptions. What can I teach you about Zen if you have 1,000 things in your head about Zen? And he got the point and he got the lesson. Is that the man needed to do what, Khidr? Empty his cup. It has nothing to do with Bruce Lee or Karate Kid or Forbidden Kingdom, as many people think. It's far older than that. Rather, the movies, they what? They got it from this original source. Rather, it's an even older concept. I don't understand this or not. So in Hadith Disciple, when we say empty your cup, it means get rid of what you think. Unlearn what you think that you've learned. This statistic, this, that, get rid of it. And ask a question with a what? Empty mind. Willing to learn. Teach me and tell me what you think is the truth. It doesn't mean make yourself stupid and dumb. It doesn't mean that I have all the answers. It doesn't mean that I know everything and I want you to be my servant. It doesn't mean that. But it means if you're going to ask me a question, at least do what? Move all of the information what? To the side. And allow me to give you my answer without saying what it is and what we know and what. Empty your what? Your cup. Come with a clear, empty mind. That's what the Japanese professor told that German professor. He says your mind is full of junk and garbage and stuff about Zen that has nothing to do with Zen, just like the teacup. And if the teacup is full, then what? What can be poured within? Everybody got it now or not? Everybody understand this? And obviously the tea had burnt the man's hand. Sorry for being a little extreme, but sometimes you have to be what? You got to be extreme for the point to get across. So with that being said, this question is extremely full-cupped. What is the ruling on wearing hijab? Is it compulsory? I've heard certain scholars say this and certain scholars say that. Do men have to wear hijab? Men don't have to wear hijab. This is not obligatory. That's all the manifestation of a what? The cup that's what? Full. Everyone understand our philosophy? And Hadith Disciple, as we've said many times before, what alhamd, is not just a dawah channel. It's not just, it's a way of thinking. Everyone understand this? It's a way of what? Thinking. And from that is to empty your cup. Everybody clear on this or not? So with that being said, what's the proof that hijab is compulsory? And there are scholars who say that hijab is not compulsory. And why do men have to wear hijab and women don't have to wear hijab? Let's reverse the question. Number one, men have to wear hijab like women have to. But obviously not the same hijab because men are different than women. Their structure, their body types are different than women. They're like the hijab of the woman. Everyone understand this? It's not the same. But a man is not allowed to go outside wearing these tight clothes. He's not allowed to wear short clothes. He's not allowed to wear see-through transparent clothes. He's not allowed to just dress how he wants to and to blend in with non-Muslims and to get away with no one recognizing him, and his wife has to be ostracized and pointed out as being a Muslim or Middle Eastern or from this country or from that country. No, that's not true. That's not true. And it's another manifestation of that insightful question of Islam versus Muslim. The teachings of Islam is not always necessarily the practice of a Muslim. Everyone understand this? Men have to wear hijab too, but the hijab is what? Different. And just like there are levels of a man's hijab, there are levels of a woman's hijab. So men don't have to wear thobes. They don't have to wear izars. They don't have to wear lungis. They don't have to wear those things. Is it best for them to wear those things? Without a question. To distinguish themselves, to cover themselves, to be modest. When the last time you seen a brother pray with a thobe and he have a problem with his backside or the crack of his behind? This is a reality. This is an honest question. When have you seen a brother with a problem wearing a thobe or an izar? Have you? Jamil, have you seen one? How many people have you seen with that problem wearing what? Pants that are tight, or a shirt that's short. And the hypocritical thing is, people they say, you don't have to wear thobe, you don't have to dress like an Arab. Or as one speaker said, a thobe is not even Arabian, it's Persian. All right, maybe it is, no problem. I agree that you don't have to look like an Arab or a Persian or an Indian or whatever. You don't have to, I agree. If you're going to wear pants and a shirt, why does your shirt have to be so short? And why are your pants so tight? And why don't you have on an undershirt and you make sujood and you offend the people that are behind you? You make sujood, you get up and your pants are stuck in your behind. You're sitting in jalsa and the pants are tight on your legs. If you're going to wear pants and a shirt, that's fine. It's not haram. But why does it have to be tight and revealing? Everyone understand the difference? So something is wrong with that. Everyone understand something is wrong. So men have to dress modestly. Men have to dress modestly. Men have to cover themselves. And men should take it to the next level as well. You go out to the park with your wife, you have on shorts and a t-shirt, and your wife is wearing all black with gloves. That's not fair. That's not right. It's hot outside. She's sweating. The beads of sweat are on her forehead too. And the kuffar, they walk by and they say, look, women are oppressed in Islam, and that's the proof. She's covered up in a burqa, and he's wearing a muscle shirt and some swim trunks. If not something worse than that. I don't want to say the word. You know what I was thinking. How is this now? Unfortunately, that is going to support what you said. Women are subjugated and they're oppressed. She's burning up hot. She's looking like a saint, and he's just like an average guy. Growing the beard is not obligatory. You can trim the beard. Wearing a thobe, not obligatory. Covering your head, not obligatory. Pants above your ankles, not obligatory. You can dress how you want to dress. You can fit in with anybody. You can go anywhere, and no one will point you out. But your wife, she has to cover up from head to toe and wear gloves in the summertime. That's not right. So that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question, going backwards, is some sheikhs say that a woman does not have to wear hijab and it's not compulsory. I agree with you 100%. Some sheikhs say that. And some sheikhs, they say all types of things. Islam is not the religion of sheikhs. Islam is not sheikhism. It's Islam. Inna deena indallahi al-Islam. The religion with Allah is what? Al-Islam. Ala lillahi dinul khalis. To Allah is the pure religion. Islam is not the religion of a sheikh. And a sheikh cannot make up rules and make the halal haram or the haram halal. No. No scholar has that status in Islam. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. Scholars have a tremendous status in Islam, no doubt. But it's a status given to them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A scholar does not make the halal haram and the haram halal. A scholar cannot change the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not sheikhism. It's called Islam. Islam. All right? So just because a scholar says that you don't have to do something doesn't mean that that's true. And just because a scholar says that something isn't a rule doesn't mean it isn't true. And I would say that don't follow your desires, sister. Just because a scholar says that you don't have to wear hijab and it's not compulsory. Or hijab is just a headscarf. All right, no problem. Some sheikhs say that a man can marry a woman with the intention to divorce her. Some scholars say that a man is allowed to marry a woman. I'm going to get married to you. And you're in love and I'm getting married, alhamdulillah, and it's in my heart 2 weeks after the marriage and consummation, I'm going to divorce you. Would you accept that? Ask you right now, would you accept that or not? Of course you wouldn't. Would you accept it for your daughter? Of course you wouldn't. But sheikhs have said it. Scholars have had the opinion of it. Point proven or not. Just because a sheikh says something doesn't prove what? Anything. And the sheikh and the mufti and the imam and the qadi, his statement has to be based off of Qala Allah, Qala Rasulullah. I mean, understand this or not? And no one in his right mind is going to read the Quran and the Sunnah and say that Allah and His Messenger have not mandated hijab. No one in his right mind is going to make that statement and have that opinion, let alone a scholar, that there's no hijab in Islam for women and they don't have to cover. SubhanAllah. How can you make this type of statement? As far as point number one, what is the proof and the evidence in Al-Islam that hijab is compulsory? The proof and the evidence in Al-Islam is Allah's statement, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Allah says, don't you have any sense? Allah says, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Have you no sense? Have you no brain? Have you no mind? Allah, He mentions this. لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. They have hearts with which they don't understand. That's the proof in the Quran that hijab is compulsory. Everyone understand this? Is that you have to have common sense. I'll leave the rest of it to you. Where is the common sense that hijab is compulsory? Sit down and think about it. Sit down and think about 1400 years of Muslims. Sit down and think about when you make Hajj and Umrah. Sit down and think about when you think about someone who's holy and righteous and pious and God-fearing. Think about fashion and the modern makeup industry and making salah and praying in front of Allah. Sit down and think about it. Use your brain a little bit. And I'm sure that you'll be able to come up with the conclusion that it makes common sense for hijab to be mandatory and compulsory. Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. جزاكم الله خيرا وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
What an insightful night. So we have two announcements. First, from the sisters. This semester will be full of sisters only, renowned Muslim speakers just for you.
No, I did that.
So tune out and be excited for that. For the second announcement, I guess we'll have
One to rock out. You having more than enough time to stop. No, I leave it.
Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, we just want to show some stuff here. Hopefully it's not that long. Sorry if I see something that I should. We have this here. A lot of questions and answers have been answered already. If you go to Mufti Q&A, like you just type in here, Mufti Q&A, hijab. It's so simple. What are the requirements of hijab? Wearing fashionable hijab in the eyes in public, interacting with a woman. Oh, inshallah. Now we also have, everybody should know already. I'm sorry, that's the wrong word. Hadithdisciple. We're live right now. I'm about to live. So you can go back and share all this. Share all this. We also have a website. MashaAllah, the brothers have successfully made categories, which we didn't do before, to leave everything anonymous, make everybody research and seek knowledge more. So MashaAllah, you can see here, everything is advice to du'as, imams, career, jinn magic, evil eye, spiritually heart, etiquette, Hajj, inshallah. This is just a small little announcement, bi'idhnillah. If you can benefit from it, alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Talk to Mr. P first.
Would you suggest it?
I have just you to tell you that you the website, no more announcements.
15 minutes.
And 15 minutes for Isha prayer. جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم.